Welcome back to BST, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on this wonderful morning. Yesterday, the NHL trade deadline went down, and man, it was pretty entertaining. A little boring at times, but I'd say overall there were some pretty big moves that kept you intrigued throughout. I figured it was only fitting to wear the Golden Knights jersey because they seem to always do something on trade deadline day over the past couple of years. Nothing today, and I'll get into that. But let's just hop right into this thing, and let's just start with the biggest trade of the day, and that was Mikko Rantanen going to the Dallas Stars. Carolina got a pretty good return. Logan Stankoven, he's a good young player, kind of having an off year, but he could do a lot of things. And I mean, last year, I'm not sure if he was counted as a rookie last year. I think so. I'm not exactly sure how the games work, but either way, it's his second season in the NHL. So still very young, lots of potential. So I like that for him somewhat. I think they maybe could have gotten more. I know Johnston and Robertson were players that some people said they should have gotten for this. But, Stankoven's good, has lots of potential. And then they got two firsts in 2026 and 2027, and two thirds in 2026 and 2027. So it's a pretty big haul for a player. But overall, I think it just kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth if you're a Hurricanes fan because I think you traded for Rantanen because you thought he would sign with you. And let's just get in the whole negotiation thing real quick. It's kind of weird because I think Colorado offered him like 12 and a half, maybe 12 million. And he didn't agree to that, so that's kind of what led to him being traded. Um, and then in Carolina, he was offered 13 and a half or around there. He didn't want that. He was looking for the 14. And then uh, last night, or the night before, the news got out that they had agreed on a trade, but then Rantanen just had to negotiate with the Stars. And the Stars came in at 12 million, and he still wanted 14. He still wanted 14, and then all of a sudden, the trade happens, and he's getting paid 12. So 8 by 12. It's just kind of interesting because I think the place that Rantanen's going to play the best is on Colorado for sure. Because I mean, you see it with Natchez, who they got back for Rantanen. I mean, everybody's just better when you play with McKinnon. So that's a little bit weird to me, but no doubt. I mean, this Stars team is stacked. Stankoven was playing on their third and fourth line, so I mean, you're losing a little bit of depth there, but I for Rantanen, I think it's worth it for sure. But it's going to be interesting to see because he still hasn't proven he can't play without McKinnon and produce the way he had with McKinnon, which obviously it's not going to be the same. He's going to produce less without McKinnon. But still, if you're going to pay a guy 12 million, you hope that he can at least be a point per game player. Rantanen was 100 points in a season player with McKinnon. So I think he's going to slide onto that first line. First line right wing probably with Robertson and Hintz. So that's a good line. That's a really good line. But so it'll be interesting to see how he fits into the Stars. But we'll talk about kind of the contenders and the favorites at the end of this video. After I talk about all these trades, where these trades put teams, and who I think is the favorite and all that stuff. But yeah, I think for Carolina, just kind of a tough tough situation because I'm sure you would have loved to keep Natchez, but I don't think Natchez wanted to re-sign there. He's having um, a great stretch in Colorado, so Colorado comes out of this a little bit sour because now Rantanen's on one of their biggest rivals. So that if they play in the playoffs, that should be a outstanding series for sure. But just yeah, I think I think it's just a little weird how it all went down. And it'll be interesting to see if Rantanen can, uh, you know, just be the guy that we all know him to be. But he hasn't proved that he can do that. He had a real tough stretch with the Hurricanes, and that probably contributed to the trade. And it seems like he wants to be in Dallas, so should be interesting to see where that goes. But there were more trades on the day, so let's get to them. I'd say probably the second. We'll just go in order of hierarchy, basically. The probably most shocking trade of the day was Brad Marchand, the Bruins captain, longtime Bruin, traded to the Florida Panthers for 2027 conditional second. Very, very odd return. We saw players all day go for firsts, and I players who I don't think were worth firsts went for firsts. And then Boston doesn't even get a first for Marchand. So it's a little weird. It's come out that Marchand did not request this. This was just Sweeney, the Bruins GM. This was all him. So I think it was the right move for Boston. They sold a lot of pieces today. We'll get to that. But I don't know that this is the return that Bruins fans want, especially for your captain. You're one of the most important player on your team probably. Maybe he's definitely not the best player on the Bruins, but your captain. It's really hard to trade a guy like that. But it was time to move on. But I just feel like they could have gotten more out of it. But now for Florida, man, you got some real just mean guys on that team. I've heard people saying they should build a line of Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and Brad Marchand. That would be a nightmare to play against. Those guys are just mean. Just I'm not gonna say dirty, but a little bit dirty players. That'd be pretty fun to watch. But yeah, Florida. They've done a lot this deadline. They got Seth Jones a few days ago to shore up their defense, kind of replace Montour, who they lost last year in free agency. Yeah, and now you got Marchand, so that they're pretty stacked. Florida's stacked. But Tkachuk and Marchand will probably be out till the playoffs, so chemistry might be a little bit of a problem, but I think Marchand just really fits the Florida Panthers style of hockey, and I really like the trade for him. Let's just talk about the Bruins. Obviously, just like I said, traded Marchand. They also sold off Charlie Coyle to the Avalanche. And a fifth-round pick, and they get back Casey Middlestat, William Zellers, and a 2025 second. The Avalanche are stacked right now. We'll talk about Brock Nelson in a little bit, but yeah, the Avalanche. The Avalanche are, I think they're really building out their depth this year and going all in, trading a lot of pieces. So it's interesting. But yeah. Middlestat, since he's gotten to Colorado, has kind of been underwhelming for what they traded when they traded Bowen Byram for him. So I think it's good to just give Middlestat a new start somewhere. It wasn't working in Colorado, at least not to the level that everybody expected it to work. But yeah, Boston, they're just this is rebuild mode now. They aren't going to win for a few years. This is just what's going to happen. So, but yeah, Colorado really stocking up. Great center depth now. Um, but let's just move on to the last Bruins trade that I want to talk about. Let's see if I can find it here. I'm not sure that we have the return yet for it. That I can find. Oh no, we got it right here. Okay. Brandon Carlo of the Boston Bruins traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs for Fraser Minten and a 2026 first. Carlo's a good defensive defenseman, and it shores up the Maple Leafs defense. But man, they are Bruins just sold off today. So it's very interesting. People seem to be excited about this Fraser Minten guy. I'm not sure who he is, but people seem pretty excited that the Bruins got him and a first round pick. So now they got a first, a second, and another second. So, and it's a conditional second, so it might turn into a first somehow. I'm not exactly sure on the conditions, but yeah, this is some good trades. They needed to. I feel like they weren't gonna win it this year. They weren't even in a playoff positioning, so you could try to maybe get a piece and try to make a push, and but then most of the time when the teams do that, you end up losing in the second round, first round, because you just don't have the pieces. And maybe you get hot and you go to the final, but it's just really hard to win when you don't have a stacked team. So I like these trades for them. While we're on the Maple Leafs, they got Scott Lawton from the Flyers. I believe they traded a first round pick, and Nikita Grabenkin, if I pronounce that right. I like this for the Maple Leafs as well. I think the thing is, I think a lot of the times during these trade deadlines, the big name players that get traded somewhere don't have as much of an impact as you think, and these like smaller depth pieces that are traded for end up really making the difference, because to win a Stanley Cup, you have to have depth, no doubt. You can't just have a really good top six and a top four defense. You need to have depth for sure. So I like this trade for Toronto. Get some depth. This guy feels like a guy who can play in Toronto. They need more tough guys like this, because I feel like a lot of their game is finesse. Not as much this year. I feel like their new coach is doing a good job playing a more physical forechecking game. But I like that trade for Toronto. One of the more interesting trades of the day was the Buffalo-Ottawa trade, in which Buffalo gets Josh Norris and Jacob Bernard Docker, and Ottawa gets Dylan Cousins, Dennis Gilbert, and a 2026 second. So, it was talked for a while. Dylan Cousins, where is he going to go? The thing about Cousins, he had a really good year, like 2 or 3 years ago, I think it was, maybe 2. And he's kind of fallen off since then. Has not had a great year this year. He's getting paid $7 million a year or something like that. 5 million, 5 years, $7 million, something like that. So a bit overpaid. But I think for Ottawa, it's like maybe this guy can, turn it around in a new location. Obviously, Buffalo is not the most desirable place to play right now. So, plus they get a second, which everybody in these comments right here seem to be pretty astounded that Ottawa got the second. So, I don't know what Buffalo's doing. Josh Norris, I think Dylan Cousins and Josh Norris are pretty similar players when healthy and playing their game. And Bernard Docker's a good defensive guy. I don't know. He's a defenseman. I don't know much about him. People seem to see like he might have a little bit of potential. Um, but overall, I saw an interview of Brady Tkachuk for the Senators. He was like very very emotional that they traded Josh Norris, and for me, it's kind of just like I'm not sure why you do this. I get it, Josh Norris can't stay healthy, but if it's your best friend of your best player, and I mean he's not a bad player, so I I wouldn't have traded him. I don't want to break up something good. Um, so, but I think this is a good, at least for the players individually. Each player gets a new chance with a new team to go out and um, show that they can, perform to where we've seen them perform before. So I like that trade for both teams, but I wouldn't have done it if I was Ottawa. But they got a good return back. Let me see here if I missed anything substantial. Let's just talk about Brock Nelson and the Avs because I've always said this for a few years now. Ever since they traded or couldn't sign Nazem Kadri, he went to, I think it went to Calgary. Um, they've kind of been missing that guy, especially with Landeskog out for how long he's been out. They've just been missing that like two-way forward big dude who can play center for him. And I think they got it right here with Brock Nelson for sure. They get Brock Nelson and William Dufour, and New York gets Callum Ritchie, Oliver Shillington, a 2026 first and a 2028 third. That is it. That is a haul. If you're an Islanders fan, Callum Ritchie is a great prospect, probably like top 25 in the NHL, just in prospect rankings. And you get a first, a third. I think they already traded Shillington to the Ducks for future consideration, so he's kind of out of this. But Brock Nelson. Now you got. Let's look at their lines real quick. They're pretty good, no doubt. Let's see here. Avalanche lines. Okay. So now, down the middle, which was a weak spot for the Avs coming into the trade deadline, you now have Nathan MacKinnon, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, and Jack Drury down the middle, which all three of these players, not including MacKinnon, the other three were acquired within the two at the trade deadline, and then the other one in the Rantanen trade. So this is it. They got a stacked lineup now because on the first line you got a Turi Lehkonen, Nathan MacKinnon, Martin Necas, and then the third or second line you got Nichushkin, Brock Nelson, Jonathan Drouin. Fourth line Logan O'Connor, Charlie Coyle, Ross Colton. Fourth line Joel Kiviranta, Jack Drury, Jim Vesey. They're stacked. And then of course we know the defense. They had Lindgren a few or maybe a week or so ago. And obviously you got Makar and Taves. So they're stacked. They are definitely stacked. But yeah, I like this trade for both sides. I think Colorado is definitely in win now mode. They almost have no future at this point. But you have to. When you got players like MacKinnon and Makar, two probably the best at each of their positions, you have to go for it. If you stand pat and focus on trying to keep your draft picks and drafting guys and continually bringing in new younger talent, it takes a while to develop guys. And you may look back on it and think, well, we were competitive, but we never won another cup. So I like that they're going after it. But for New York, I mean, you got a haul. So New York can finally just kind of change things up a bit, I think, and just I think a lot of teams today, Bruins, New York, it's like, okay, let's just commit to a rebuild or a retool to try just move past some of these older guys um, and move into the future. And I like this trade for both sides. I'm trying to think if there's any other trades really have any of note. I'm not really interested in talking about the lower level ones. Just scrolling through here real quick. Some smaller level deals. Luke Shen, Brandon Tanev to the Winnipeg Jets. See if they can bolster their roster to make a run here. I know the Capitals traded for Anthony Beauvillier, traded a second, which is that's a lot for Beauvillier, but that's an interesting one. Let's talk about Utah for a second. They traded Shea Weber, Victor Soderstrom, Akurati for a fifth. But the big part of this is Shea Weber contract going to the Blackhawks, which is big because I think it frees like about $7 or $8 million in cap space for Utah. So as a Utah fan, I'm hoping they use some of this money to just go big after a guy. Obviously, Ranton's off the table. I think the guy you look to next is Mitch Marner. I don't know if the Leafs will pay him or not. I hope they don't because that'd be awesome in Utah. That's where my focus is as a Utah fan at this point. Mitch Marner, come on over to Utah, please, Mitch Marner. That'd be so awesome. But yeah, I like this trade for Utah, just getting rid of that final kind of section of the Arizona Coyotes franchise. I think they're still paying some to OEL, Oliver Ekman Larson. So I don't know about that one, but still getting this off. I think the GM described it as like housekeeping. I think that's exactly what it is. So I like it. I think one of the shocking things today was the Canucks were rumored to trade Brock Besser almost all day, and they never did. And I think he would have been a good fit in a lot of places. But I guess the returns were not that good. Their GM said that the return wasn't good, so he didn't want to trade him. So I get it, but now the Canucks are kind of in no man's land. They didn't make any moves today, really, so they kind of just riding with it. And they're kind of a disaster. So interested to see where the Western Conference wild card race goes. Obviously, a lot of teams in there. Not a lot of teams in that race made a lot of moves today, so it'll be interesting to see where that one goes. And last thing before we talk about the contenders and stuff, the Stars signed Wyatt Johnston to a 5-year extension worth $8.4 million a year. I like this. I like this a lot for the Stars. I hate the Stars, but Johnston's a great player, and this is a bargain for him, especially this year how he's playing. I just the Stars GM, he's making a lot of good moves for him. So I I think the Stars are poised to go on a cup run this year. Um, but yeah, let's just talk about that for a second. So, who are the favorites now? I think technically Florida is the odds-on favorite, but I think we're in a very interesting spot this year that the two best teams in the league are kind of getting pushed to the corner and not involved in those conversations as much as they should, being the two best teams, and that's the Jets and the Caps. You know, I, I mean, they're number 1 and number 2 in the league, but it feels like, at least to me, the Capitals won a cup like it's like going on 7 years now ago. So there's that. But the Jets choke every year. This is what happens. But now they finally got the best team they've had. So can they do it? Maybe, but I don't know. You just kind of have that feeling with both of those teams that it's like, can this team actually win the cup? I don't know. I'm not sure that they can. So that's an interesting point. And then I think in the Eastern Conference right now, basically the three Atlantic teams are the ones that I'm looking at to represent in the final. Florida, Toronto, Tampa. But Toronto got a lot better, getting Carlo and Lawton. Tampa made a trade a few days ago for Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gord, so that bolsters their forward core. And then Florida got Marchand, obviously, and Florida's already stacked. They got Seth Jones as well, so it should be very interesting. But I think the Eastern Conference comes down to those three teams. Washington's good, but I don't think they'll be able to win a couple 7-game series against these teams. The Hurricanes, currently second in the Metro. I don't know. I think this trade just puts them in kind of a weird spot. They're obviously going to make the playoffs, but I'm not thrilled with their roster. They kind of struggle to score at times. Their power play is awful. So, and then you got New Jersey, and with Jack Hughes out for the season, I don't think New Jersey's going to do anything. They're going to be fighting for a playoff spot now because you got Columbus, Ottawa, New York, all right there, ready to take their well, at least I guess not that, but all I'm saying is New Jersey may be battling for a wild card instead of being third in the Metro with Jack Hughes' injury, because that's just a big loss for him. So, yeah, like I said, in the East, I think the top three Atlantic teams are the ones to look for. Moving on to the West, same deal. Winnipeg, great season, but you got to prove it to me that you can do it in the playoffs, or else I'm not going to believe you. So, there's that. I think I want to say Vegas could, but at the same time, I don't think they're as stacked as they were even last year, and they weren't able to do it against the Stars. So I think this isn't Vegas's year. They're good, no doubt, but I think they aren't as good as they have been. Edmonton is kind of on 4-6 in the last 10. They're on a bit of a slide here, and they didn't do much. They got a defenseman, Wallman. Apparently Edmonton made a pretty big push after Rantanen, which is interesting, but they weren't able to get him. So Edmonton, you can never count them out. I mean, they made it to the final last year, but they lost a lot of their bottom six depth. McLeod, Broberg. I'm sure I'm missing another guy they lost. Broberg was on the defensive side. Defenseman, lost him, but now you get Wallman, so, maybe you're similar in depth to where you were last year. But I don't know about the Oilers. Their stars are just going to have to show up. And they might play the Kings for the fourth year in a row. It's slated they'll play the Kings, which would just be insane. Yeah, just crazy. So I think that I'd say there are two contenders that I'm looking at, and it's the Dallas Stars and it's the Colorado Avalanche. And right now they're slated to play each other in the first round, and that would just be cinema. I think both teams improved over the trade deadline. I think Colorado got more depth, but Dallas already had pretty good depth. Once Maro Heiskanen's back, they got both top tier defensemen. So I'd say I got um, a 5 team Stanley Cup final contender list, and it's Dallas, Colorado, Tampa, Toronto, and Florida. I'd say that's my 5. And Washington and Winnipeg are like right there, but I can't. I just cannot put them in it yet. I just do not trust them. I do not trust them whatsoever. But you know what? Prove me wrong. I would love nothing more than to see Ovechkin raise the cup and get the goal record. Would love nothing more. And I wouldn't hate it if Winnipeg won the cup either. But I'm just going off a track record. Um, and the President's Trophy curse could happen again, probably if Winnipeg gets it. If you know, I think that's a very real possibility. Won't help the track record of the President's Trophy anymore because I don't think these two teams are the best. They have the best record, but I really think it comes down to those 5 teams, as I mentioned. And the next category, led by Winnipeg, Washington. Then you got Vegas, Edmonton. Um, I don't know if I'd put Carolina in there yet. I probably would Carolina, but I mean the West wild card. There's like 4 teams for that last spot. In the East, it's almost closer. There's like 4 teams for that last spot as well. So it's gonna heat up here as we come down the stretch. Um, but yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Just I wish I could have got it out a little bit sooner, but I was really tired last night, so I'm just like, I'm gonna go to bed and I'll do it in the morning. Talk about the trades. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this episode. Tell us in the comments, did your hockey team make some good moves? Did they make any moves? Are you happy with what they did? I'm not, with both of my teams, Vegas and Utah. I'm happy. Vegas, Vegas held still, but sometimes I feel like Vegas almost makes too big of moves and they mortgage too much of the future, which they already have. Let's be real. But like that, I think that's a problem sometimes. Sometimes it's just better just to stay. If things are working, just stay where you are. Keep it going. Keep the chemistry going, and see what happens in the playoffs. And for Utah, they're not going to win the cup this year, so it doesn't really matter. Save it for free agency. See what can happen there. But once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Had fun making this video, and we will see you in the next one. Have a great day.